The call came in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, right as I was reviewing an expense ledger for a client. The woman on the line sounded polite, professional, efficient. "Hello, is this Mrs. Brooks?" she asked. "Yes," I said, already distracted. "I'm calling from Westbridge Academy regarding Noah's enrollment forms. We just need confirmation from you as his stepmother." My hand froze over the keyboard. "My what?" I asked. There was a pause. Papers shuffled. "Noah Brooks," she said slowly. "Your husband is listed as his father." I remember staring at the wall behind my desk while she kept talking. Tuition schedules. Emergency contacts. Pickup permissions. None of it made sense. Noah. 6 years old. Private school. My husband's last name. Daniel and I had been married for 8 years. 8. We had spent most of that time trying for a baby. Doctor appointments. Tests. Waiting rooms. Words like unexplained infertility spoken softly, like apologies. Daniel had held my hand every time. Told me it wasn't my fault. Told me we'd be okay. And now a school was calling me about a child I had never heard of. I didn't cry. I didn't call Daniel. I opened a new notebook instead. Because if there was a child, there would be records. And records don't lie. That night, Daniel came home like nothing had happened. He kissed my cheek. Asked what I wanted for dinner. Complained about traffic. I watched him closely, seeing things I'd never noticed before. How relaxed he was. How comfortable. I almost said something. Instead, I asked, casually, "How was your meeting uptown last month?" He shrugged. Same old. Boring. After he fell asleep, I opened our shared laptop. I wasn't snooping. I was auditing. That distinction mattered to me. The first thing I checked was our bank account. There it was. A recurring transfer. $1,850. Every month. Labeled, consulting, CR. For 6 years. Same amount. Same date. No variation. That wasn't guilt money. That was budgeting. I cross-checked insurance records next. One dependent listed. Not me. A child. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to slow down. Panic ruins accuracy. And accuracy was my strength. I didn't confront him the next day. Or the day after. I audited my marriage the way I'd audit a corporation suspected of fraud. Tax returns. Expense reimbursements. Travel claims. Extended lodging payments that matched an apartment lease in another part of the city. Pediatric urgent care bills partially reimbursed through corporate expense codes. Daniel hadn't been careless. He had been systematic. That mattered. Because it turned betrayal into infrastructure. He hadn't slipped into a second life. He had built one. Then I found something that changed everything. A fertility referral note. Assigned to Daniel. Never completed. The doctor had recommended follow-up testing. Daniel never went. I stared at the date. It was 3 months before Noah was born. Daniel had known. He had known he could have a child. And he had let me believe I was broken. I closed the file and sat very still. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was psychological. And it had been sustained for years. I reached out to Noah's mother, Carla Reyes, the following week. Not angrily. Not emotionally. Just one message. "Hi. This is Natalie Brooks. I believe we need to talk." She replied politely. Confused. When I asked how long she'd been with Daniel, she said 7 years. When I asked if she knew he was married, she stopped responding. I sent one document. Our marriage certificate. Nothing came back for hours. When she finally replied, it was one line. He told me he was divorced. That was the moment the story expanded. This wasn't me versus her. It was both of us versus the same lie. Carla sent photos. School forms. Messages. Daniel had introduced himself as a single father. At one point, a widower. I studied his face in the photos. That version of him had never existed in my life. I thanked her. Then I stopped communicating. Emotion wasn't required anymore. Evidence was. I compiled everything. Every transfer. Every reimbursement. Every misrepresentation. I didn't write commentary. I wrote timelines. Facts. Patterns. I met with a divorce attorney quietly. I didn't say affair. I said financial misrepresentation and misuse of marital assets. Her expression changed immediately. We mapped it all. Undisclosed dependents. Falsified expense reports. Inconsistent tax filings. Corporate ethics violations. We froze accounts legally. Prepared filings. Built a disclosure package. And then I waited. Because this wasn't about confrontation. It was about timing. 2 weeks later, Daniel's firm announced their annual awards dinner. He was nominated for integrity and leadership excellence. He joked about it at dinner. "You know how these things are," he said. "All optics." I smiled. I RSVP'd yes. I bought a new dress. Daniel thanked me for being supportive. He had no idea. And that was exactly the point. The night of the awards dinner arrived quietly. Daniel stood in front of the mirror adjusting his tie, humming to himself. He looked relaxed. Confident. Like a man whose life was perfectly aligned. "You nervous?" he asked casually. "Not at all," I said. That was true. The venue was elegant. Soft lighting. White tablecloths. People in tailored suits and polished smiles. Daniel's colleagues greeted him warmly, congratulating him before the ceremony even began. I watched him accept their praise with ease. Charm had always been his strongest asset. We were seated near the front. Good optics. When Daniel's name was called, the applause was loud. He stood, smiling broadly, and walked toward the stage like he belonged there. I checked my phone. One message. Service completed. Corporate compliance notified. I looked back up just as Daniel reached the podium. He thanked the firm. He spoke about ethics, leadership, integrity. I watched his face as a man in a dark suit approached from the side of the stage. Another followed. They spoke to the host briefly. Daniel's smile flickered. Just for a second. Then froze. The room didn't erupt. There was no shouting. Just confusion. Whispers. Phones lighting up. Daniel stepped off stage holding an envelope he hadn't opened yet. He scanned the room. Then his eyes found mine. I didn't react. I didn't need to. He walked toward me, panic breaking through the confidence for the first time in 8 years. "Natalie," he whispered. "What is this?" "This," I said calmly, standing up, "is the truth catching up." The next morning, Daniel's corporate email access was suspended. Expense accounts frozen. An internal investigation launched. By noon, his phone was blowing up. Not with sympathy. With questions. At home, he tried denial first. Then anger. Then guilt. "You could have talked to me," he said. "I did," I replied. "For 8 years." He tried deflection. "You went through my things." "No," I corrected. "I audited our life." That was the moment he understood. This wasn't emotional leverage. This was documentation. Corporate compliance moved fast. They always do when numbers don't reconcile. Improper expense classification. Undisclosed dependents. Policy violations. Financial misconduct. Daniel was placed on administrative leave within 48 hours. He tried one last tactic. "What about Noah?" he asked quietly. I looked at him steadily. "I didn't harm him," I said. "You did." And that was true. Every filing protected the child. Only Daniel was exposed. 3 weeks later, the investigation concluded. Termination. Not for infidelity. For financial misconduct. The language was clean. Clinical. Final. Daniel sat across from me that night, pale and quiet. "You wanted to destroy me," he said. "No," I replied. "I wanted the truth documented." There's a difference. The divorce moved quickly after that. Without his salary, his leverage disappeared. Asset tracing doesn't care about excuses. Only arithmetic. Marital funds misused. Joint accounts diverted. Settlement calculated. Daniel signed the papers without looking at me. Charm doesn't override numbers. Carla messaged me. "He told Noah he made mistakes," she said. "That was as it should be. Children deserve honesty scaled to their innocence." I archived the message. Closed the folder. Ended the case. Weeks later, I scheduled a follow-up appointment with a specialist. Not for answers. For closure. The doctor reviewed my file carefully. "There's no confirmed infertility diagnosis here," she said. "Just incomplete testing." Incomplete. Daniel had never finished his. I sat very still. 4 years, I carried a label that was never medically assigned. A narrative I accepted without verification. I walked out of that office lighter than I'd felt in a decade. The last transfer cleared on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Accounts separated. Assets finalized. Daniel's name removed from every document beside mine. That mattered more than anything else. That evening, I opened the notebook from the day of the school call. The first line read, "If there is a child, there will be records." I added one final sentence beneath it. There were. I closed the notebook. This story didn't end with screaming. It ended with reconciliation. Numbers balanced. Truth reconciled. And for the first time in years, so was my life.